Is GPS a completely reliable means of navigation? Why? GPS indeed is a reliable and accurate means of navigation. On the other hand, it can sometimes suffer interference. So pilots need to be prepared to revert to the conventional navigation if necessary. Is GPS a completely reliable means of navigation? Why? GPS is indeed reliable for navigation, of course, but on the other hand, the pilots need to be prepared because GPS sometimes has a problem. The signal doesn't work, and the pilot needs to check change to conventional aids to fly safely. Do you think we will fly without pilots in the future? I don't believe so. We will fly without a pilot. We will fly without with a pilot inside the cockpit. So in the future, because some situation require a human judgment. In this case, to make safe and effective decisions during the flight. Do you think we will fly without the pilots in the future? So I don't believe so. I think in the future use one pilot, single pilot inside the cockpit, of course, but without never, because some situations require the human judgment and action when the autopilot can do it. What would the traffic management be like without GPS navigation? Traffic management would be less precise without GPS, GPS navigation, because the controllers would need increased separation between the traffics, and the pilot needs report the distance and the radio. What would air traffic management be like without GPS navigation? Traffic management without GPS system cause some problems during the flight when the air traffic control needs separate the air traffic a little bit higher than normal, and ask the pilot all the time to check the radio and the altitude and distance to follow the traffic in the air. So it's very important to do. Why is simulator training so important for pilots? A simulator helps a pilot to train for emergencies because it improves knowledge, handling, hone skills, and develop in a safe environment while practicing realistic scenarios. Why is important training so important for a pilot? Flight simulator helps a pilot training for emergency situation every year. So it's essential to keep the pilot keeps the handling hone skills and knowledge and the handling and a good situation awareness during the flight and simulate different scenarios. How do you think Brazil aviation will change in the near future? Brazil aviation will change in the near future because the government will invest in infrastructure and technology, including new airports, long and wide runways, modern and comfortable terminals, and approach and departure procedures. How do you think Brazilian aviation will change in the near future? Brazilian aviation will change in the near future because the government will invest in the technology, surveillance, and build new airports around all over Brazil, especially in the regional airports, and rebuild the taxiways and runways, and improve the safety procedures in the airport. What do you predict for the Brazilian aviation market? In my opinion, Brazilian aviation market will grow because the government will invest in airport infrastructure, build new terminals, develop longer and wider runways, and improve air traffic service. I am confident about this situation in the future. So what do you predict for a Brazilian aviation market? In my opinion, the Brazilian aviation market will grow because the government will invest in airports, especially build new airports and rebuild runways, especially in the regional airports, and improve the surveillance in the Brazil airspace. Why is readback so important? Readback is essential and the standard procedures in aviation because it informs correct communication between the ATC and pilots, reduce misunderstanding, prevents errors and ambiguity, and minimize some problems. Why is the readback so important? Readback is essential in aviation, in procedures, in aviation, of course, because it confirms correct communication between the pilot and the ATC, reduce misunderstanding, and prevent errors. Why is readback important? Readback is essential in standard procedures in aviation because it confirms correct communication. The readback confirms correct communication between the ATC and pilot, and reduce the misunderstanding, prevent error. How do you think Brazilian aviation regulation will change? Brazilian aviation regulation will develop every day, and the best way to keep the evolution is by aligning the FAA regulation from the United States of America. What do you think Brazilian aviation regulation will change? Brazilian aviation regulation will change if the ANAC follow some rules, some regulations from the FAA, because FAA is the best in the world nowadays. For me, the United States has a good and the best rules, the best regulation in the world about aviation. All the regulation in Brazil is standardized from an FAA. How is executive aviation different from airline aviation? Executive aviation is more flexible and usually allows pilots to spend long periods in their families. On the other hand, airline aviation follows strict schedules, rigid stop, unless the family time. How is executive aviation different from airline aviation? Executive aviation is more flexible to flight, of course, um, um, the executive aviation, the pilot, give more opportunity to the pilot stay with the family for long periods, and the executive pilot has a light schedule. And on the other hand, the commercial pilots is more difficult. They are to fly because they stay a long time away from the family and follow the restrict schedule and a strict stop through. What's the difference between the V1 and V2? V1 is the takeoff decision speed at which the pilot decides to continue or abort takeoff. On the other hand, V2 is the climb speed, where the aircraft climb to the safety altitude, minimum safety altitude, and after an engine failure. So what's the difference between the V1 and V2? V1 is speed when the pilot decides to abort the takeoff. The captain decides to abort takeoff V1 below V1, at the V1. V2 when the pilot continues to fly and after takeoff lose the engine and the pilot follow the V2 speed. V2 speed is the safety speed to climb to safety altitude, and when an engine failure situation. How do you ever consider changing careers? I haven't ever considered changing my career. From the beginning, I was confident in my choice, and I decided aviation when would be my profession for life. Have you ever considered changing careers? I have never considered it. I have never considered changing my career because from the beginning I was confident in choosing my career, and I decided in aviation with my life. What is decide yours? How do you see aviation worldwide 20 years from now? Aviation worldwide will be better from now and more efficient in 20 years, of course, because technology develops every day. Expanded airport infrastructure and improved the training standard helps to develop together. How do you see aviation worldwide 20 years from now? Aviation worldwide will be better. Worldwide will be better in 10 years, more efficient in 20 years too, because the technology grow every day, and all the infrastructure in the aviation develop and will be better, especially the training. What advice did your instructor give before your first check ride? Before my first check ride, the instructor gave me some important advice. He told me to stay calm, remember the base action, aviate, navigate, and communicate, and never skip the checklist or the KRH, especially during abnormal and emergency situation. What advice did your instructor give before the first check ride? Before my first check ride, my instructor gave me some tips and advice. He told me to never skip the checklist and the QRH during the emergency situation or abnormal situation. So he told me to aviate, navigate, and communicate. This is a basic action when the pilot has a problem. So he told me to keep calm all the time. Have you had a malfunction or emergency while flying? Of course, I have had an electrical malfunction. I have had an electrical malfunction while flying from Wondershare to Joinville. I lost the electrical system near Curitiba International Airport, so I decided to divert to and land in Curitiba under the low visibility condition, which was a very stressful situation in my career path. Have you had malfunction or emergency while flying? Yes, I have had an electrical malfunction. I have had an electrical malfunction when I was flying from Araxá to Curitiba at night. I was flying close to Curitiba International Airport, and I lost the electrical system, and I decided to divert to Curitiba International Airport and landed in the low visibility condition, under the low visibility condition, so which was very stressful situation in my career path. What advice did your instructor give you before your first checker ride? Before my first checker ride, my instructor gave me some important advice. He told me to stay calm, remember the basic action. Aviate, navigate, and communicate. Remember the basic actions. Aviate, navigate, and communicate. And never skip the checklist on the QRH, especially during abnormal and emergency situation. What advice did your instructor give you before the first checker ride? Before the first checker ride, my instructor gave me some important advice. He told me to keep calm all the time, and the basic actions. Remember the basic actions: aviate, navigate, and communicate. Aviate, navigate, and communicate, and never skip the checklist. Never. How did I become interested in aviation? I became interested in aviation when I was young. My father took me in the airport and flew with me over Blumenau City, which made me very happy that at that moment, after that experience, I decided to look for the flight schools and start my aviation course. So how do you decide to become interested in aviation? I became interested in aviation when I was young, in 1992. My father took me to the airport and flew with me over Blumenau airfield. So I was very excited and happy at that moment, which made me very happy at the moment. So after that experience, in 2 weeks later, I looked for the air school, the flight school, and started my course, and started my course in aviation. Is GPS completely reliable? Why? GPS is indeed reliable because it provides accurate and precise navigation. On the other hand, it can sometimes suffer signal interference. So pilots must be prepared to complete the navigation using the conventional aids. Is GPS completely reliable? Why? GPS is indeed reliable and accuracy, but sometimes the GPS suffer interference, and the pilot needs change the navigation system and use conventional aids. What were the best piece of device your instructor gave you? I remember when my instructor gave me some important piece of advice. He told me to stay calm, remember the basic action, aviate, navigate, and communicate. and never skipped the checklist or TRH, especially during abnormal and emergency situation. I remember when my instructor gave me some important advice, a piece of advice, and he told me to stay calm that time and remember the basic action. I remember the basic action: evaluate, navigate, and communicate. Never skip the checklist, such as the QRH and the abnormal and emergency situations. Have you ever considered change careers? I have never considered change my careers, because from the beginning I was confident in my choice, and I decided the aviation would be my profession for life. Have you ever considered a change career? I have never considered changing my career before. So when I decided in 1992, my choice was, I was confident in my choice, about my choice, and never thought changed the career path at the moment. What was the most challenging simulator scenario you practiced? The most challenging simulator scenario I practiced was a dual hydraulic system failure during the flight. I had to plan and execute the landing in the short runway, and I need to review the procedures and configuration, performance configuration before landing. It was the most challenging scenario in my career. What was the most challenging simulator scenarios you practiced? The most challenging simulated scenario was when I flying and lost the dual hydraulic system failure during the flight, and I landed at the airport under the low visibility condition in a short runway. So it was very stressful that moment, because when you lost the hydraulic system, the pilot needs to check the performance before landing. How did you become interested in aviation? I became interested in aviation when I was young. My father took me to the airport, and we flew over Blumenau City, which made me very happy at that moment. And after that experience, I decided to look for the flight school and start an aviation course as my career path. What did you become interested in aviation? I became interested in aviation when I was young. My father took me to the airport a long time ago in 1992. So I flew with my dad that moment, and that moment made me very happy at the moment. And so after that day, I looked for the school and started my career in aviation. What were the best piece of advice the flying instructor gave you? So I remember when I was, my instructor gave me some important piece of advice. He told me to stay calm. Remember the base action. Base action is are ideate, navigate, and communicate. And never skip the checklist or the TRH, especially during the normal and emergency situation. What will communication between the pilots and ATC be like in 10 years? Communication between pilots and ATC will be more precise in 10 years because increased use the CPLD, ADC, and ADSB. will reduce the voice communication inside the cockpit and reduce the workload. What will communication between the pilots and ATC be like in 10 years? Communication between the pilots and ATC communication will be better than in 10 years, of course, than today, because use the CPDLC ADS-B inside the cockpit, and this equipment help the pilots to fly safely without misunderstand and reduce workload inside the airplane. What is the most difficult situation you experienced during the flight? The most difficult situation I faced was during a flight from Araxá to Joinville, when I lost the electrical system near the Curitiba International Airport, and I decided to divert to Curitiba and landed under the low visibility condition, which was a very stressful situation in my career path. Please describe your first solo flight. My first solo flight was a long time ago. In 1992, I was flying with my instructor over Joinville Airfield when, at the set moment, he asked me to stop the aircraft on the taxiway. Then he left the aircraft and told me to continue alone. At that moment, I felt very excited. But also a little afraid. And I took off over Joinville, and flew over Joinville and landed safely. Describe your first solo flight. My first solo flight was in 1992, long time ago. I was flying over Joinville with my instructor, and my instructor asked me to stop the aircraft on the taxiway, and left the aircraft and told me to continue alone. And I flew for 15 minutes over Joinville at that moment. So I was very afraid and excited, and I landed safely. Fortunately, everything was happening good. Was good that time. What motivated you to become a pilot? My dad, of course. I became interested in aviation when I was young, and my father took me to the airport and flew with me over Blumenau airfield. It made me very happy at that moment. And after that, I decided to look for a flight school and start in aviation course. So I was very happy. What's the difference between the captain and the co-pilot's responsibility? The captain has the final authority and overall responsibility for the flight. The final authority, the final responsibility from the captain. The final decision. And on the other hand, the co-pilot supports the captain by the monitoring systems, handling communication, assist the checklist. What is the difference between the captain and the co-pilot responsibility? The captain has a final authority and final decision. So on the other hand, the co-pilot supports the captain to do the checklist and the navigation and monitor the system, stuff like that. What are the advantages and disadvantages of the pilot? Advantages of being a pilot include traveling in different places, of course, experience the new culture, new people, know the new people. And disadvantage and can be fatigue, stress, and long period from my family. This is a disadvantage problem. What is the advantages and disadvantages of being a pilot? Adventures of being a pilot include traveling in different places, new people and new cultures. The disadvantages can be fatigue, stress, and keep a long time along the long period from my family, my kids. This is a adventure situation. What are the biggest difficulties to become a pilot? The biggest difficulties to become a pilot are the high cost of training, a larger regulation to study, and need to keep the license, the qualification regularly up to date. What are the biggest difficulties to become a pilot? The biggest difficulties to become a pilot are the high cost of the training. To pay this training is a large cost and a large regulation to study too, and need to keep the license up to date every year, once a year. Have you ever used English in the radio during the flight? Yes, I have used English on the radio during the flights. I usually try to communicate in English with ATC, especially during approach, departure and center communications, in order to practice and improve the English during the flight operation. Have you ever used English in the radio during the flight? Yes, I have used English. I used English during the flight when I was flying from Rio de Janeiro to São Paulo, for example. Last week I was flying with the controller and the Curitiba Center, and so I was very confident during the flight, during the communication with them, and I understood everything, and I was very happy because my English improved every day, training every day. How do you think technology will change aviation? Technology will change aviation because it will increase automation, reduce workload, enhance safety procedures, and improve the situation awareness. How do you think technology will change aviation? Technology will change in aviation because it will increase automation, and reduce workload, of course, enhance safety procedures, and improve the situation awareness. So, how dangerous is it when a pilot doesn't know his correct speed? The consequence may be lost the aircraft control, stall, tail strike, and runway excursion. This event happens especially during critical phase of flight, such as takeoff and landing. How dangerous is it when the pilot doesn't know his correct airspeed? The consequence may be stall, maybe loss of control, stall, tail strike, and runway excursion. This event happens especially during takeoff and during the approach procedures, and it's necessary to check all the speeds in the performance manual, as the manufacturer said. How do airports mitigate the risk of border strikes? Airports mitigate the risk of border strikes through wildlife management programs, including the use of bird of prey, drones, laser, and fireworks. These measures reduce the bird presence in critical airport area. How do airports mitigate the risk of bird strikes? Airports mitigate the risk of bird strikes. Try to administrate the management wildlife management programs, use the fireworks, birds of prey, and drones, laser, hound dogs around the airport to mitigate or keep the birds away from the runway. What was the first aircraft you ever flew? The first aircraft I ever flew was a Piper Cub. It is older and it is an older training. It is an older training aircraft which high wing, single engine, 2 blades propeller, and a tail dragger configuration. And that was an aircraft I flew for the first time. Tell me about the worst accident you've ever heard of. The worst accident I have ever heard of occurred in 1997 at the Los Rodeos Airport in Tenerife, when the two Boeing 747 aircraft collided on the runway. It became a deadliest accident. It became the deadliest accident in aviation history. In many cause low visibility condition and miscommunication between the flight crews and the ATC. Tell me about the worst accident have you ever heard before? The worst accident I have ever heard before was in Tenerife International Airport and Los Rodeos. At Los Rodeos, so two Boeing 747 collided during takeoff procedures under the low visibility condition, and so that event was happened because the pilot didn't understand the control instructions and decided to take off and collide with the other Boeing 747 from the other company. How dangerous is incorrect airspeed information? The consequence may be loss of the control, stall, tail strike, and runway excursion. The event happens especially during the critical phase of flight, such as takeoff and landing. How dangerous is incorrect airspeed information? The consequence may be a loss of control, the aircraft, stall, runway incursion, tail strikes. It happens if the pilot didn't check the speed, the manual as the manufacturer said. How does engine failure affect performance in high altitude? A high altitude, an engine failure reduces aircraft performance, especially climb capability. The pilot may need to perform a drift down and at the lower altitude and try to restart the engine again and fly safely. So, how does the engine failure affect performance at high altitude? At high altitude, an engine failure can cause the loss of the control. The pilot lost the control and request descend immediately to the control and to try to fly safely and try to restart the engine again, because the aircraft can't sustain the high altitude for a long period. What else may happen after a light strike? What else may happen after a light strike? The consequence may be temporary instrument failure, system malfunction, structural damage, and in some case pilot disorientation after a lightning strike. What else? may happen after a lightning strike. The consequence may be a loss of communication. The pilot can see correctly the instruments due to the lightning, and the short circuit, it happens. And so there are a lot of situations that may happen when the lightning hit the aircraft. How dangerous is low oil pressure? Why? Low oil pressure is very dangerous because it may cause severe engine damage due to insufficient lubrication, leading to overheating and possible engine failure. How dangerous is low oil pressure and why? Low oil pressure is a dangerous situation. It can cause sometimes high temperature and can break inside the engine, and obviously overheating engine failure. When should a pilot perform missed approach procedures? A pilot should perform missed approach procedures when the weather condition is below the minimum, approach becomes unstable, or abnormal situations occur during the final approach. When should a pilot perform a missed approach procedures? A pilot should perform a missed approach procedures when can't see the runway. There are some problems during the approach procedures, unstable approach, or if the controller requests a pilot to do a missed approach. What's a near miss? And why is it dangerous? Near miss occur when the aircraft pass very close to each other, creating a hazard situation. It is dangerous situation because it can result in miscommunication, distraction, loss of situational awareness, or congested airport or busy airport. What's near miss and why is it dangerous? The near miss occurs when the two aircraft pass very close to each other, creating potential hazard during the flight. It is a dangerous situation. It happens during the takeoff and approach procedures commonly, and miscommunication, poor situational awareness, or congested airport or terminal, busy terminal. What may happen with hydraulic failure? The consequence at the hydraulic failure may be lost the control, the flap it doesn't work, the landing gear doesn't work, and the brakes doesn't work very well. In this case, all these systems is important to reduce aircraft and land safely. It's necessary to check the performance, the performance speed, and request the control longest runway. What may happen in hydraulic failure? The consequence of the hydraulic failure may include partial or total flight controls, landing gear malfunction, degraded and operative braking system, and abnormal procedures check the performance. So, how does a pilot prepare for a go-around procedures? A pilot prepares for a go-around procedures by reviewing the briefing, missed approach charts, including the heads, altitudes, turns, and share the information with the crew members, and prepare these procedures before descent, before starting the descent. How does a pilot prepare for a go-around procedures? A pilot prepares for a go-around procedures and review the briefing and missed approach charts as depicted in the charts, follow the altitude, heading, and the restrictions, some restrictions, and turns, special turns. So the pilot prepared this briefing before they start the descent and check everything with share the information with the colleagues. How do you usually prepare yourself for a flight? I prepare myself to myself. I need sleep well last night, maybe 8 hours. I need to sleep well the last night, 8 hours, eating the last night light meals, and maintain a physical and mental fitness before the flight. What do you usually prepare yourself for a flight? I prepare myself and try to sleep the best the last night, and maybe 8 hours. I try to sleep 8 hours before the last night, and eat a light meal the last night too, and take a rest before they start the flight, and keep the mentally and physically fit all the time. What are the risks of emergency situation? The risk of emergency descent may include the passenger injured. Yes, the structural stress on the aircraft, and obstacle alerts. So it's happened during the emergency descent normally. What are the risks of the emergency descent? The risk of emergency descent may include the passenger's injury, structural stress, entering obstacle hazard alarm during the minimum safe altitude. Tell me about the equipment of your current flight. Nowadays, I fly a medium size. I am currently flying 7 Citation 680. I am flying a medium size aircraft and business. This corporate jet, business jet, I can say, belongs to a Cessna manufacturer. It carries around 10 passengers. Has a longer range endurance, and it is operated at a short runways too. Tell me about the equipment of your current flight. Nowadays, I'm flying a medium-sized aircraft. I'm currently flying a 680, which is a mid-sized business jet. Belongs to Cessna manufacturer. It carries around 10 passengers and has longer range endurance, and it is operating on short runway. What's the laser strike and why is it dangerous? A laser strike occurs when someone points a laser at an aircraft, and blinding the pilot. The consequence can be disorientation, loss of situation awareness, loss of control, and it happens especially during the approach and takeoff procedures at low altitude. What laser strikes? Why is it dangerous? A laser strike occurs when someone points the laser at an aircraft and hit the eyes, the pilot eyes, cause blindness, and in this situation the pilot can loss of control and cause a disaster It's a very dangerous situation. It happens during the takeoff and the approach procedures at low altitude. How was the beginning of career in aviation? The beginning in my career in aviation was challenging because I didn't have enough financial resource and to pay all the training. My family and colleagues helped me during that period. So I am very grateful to everyone to support it at my time. How was the beginning in your career in aviation? The beginning of my career in aviation was very difficult because I didn't have money sufficient my financial resource to training was how can I say I didn't have a financial money to financial my course, and during that period my family supported me to pay all the course. The beginning of my career in aviation was challenging because I didn't have enough financial resource to pay for all the training. My family and the colleagues helped me during that period, so I am very grateful to everyone that supported me at that time. How long does it usually take someone to become a pilot? I usually take several years to become a pilot, depending on the training and the budget. The most case, around 3 or 5 years, is the common time to obtain all the license and before you start the career. How long does it usually take off for someone to become a pilot? I usually takes several years to become a pilot. Several years to become a pilot, depending on the training place and the budget. So in the most case, around 3 or 5 years after obtaining the license, I am started the career. The pilot started the career. Were you influenced by someone to become a pilot? Yes, I was influenced by someone to become a pilot. My neighbor of mine was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and he inspired me. After that, I became interested in aviation and decided to study in this field. Were you influenced by someone to become a pilot? Yes, I was influenced by someone to become a pilot. My neighbor was studying in the Aeronautical Air Force Academy in Barbacena, and he inspired me to study in aviation, to start my career in aviation. That time, a long time ago. How can instrument malfunction threaten safety? Instrument malfunction can threaten safety by causing loss of situation awareness and increase cockpit workload. The pilot needs to revert the basic visual condition and land as soon as possible. How can instrument malfunction threaten safety? Instrument malfunction can threaten safety by causing a loss of control. The pilot needs to change the flight conditions and try to fly under the visual condition, and use the conventional method. Sometimes the instructions, the vectors, and visual conditions. What are the consequences of overweight landing? The consequence may be the aircraft or maybe structural damage, excessive brake overheating, and during the landing, increase the risk of a tire blowout due to higher loads. What are the consequences of overweight landing? The consequence of overweight landing and aircraft overweighting can be structural damage, excessive braking, collapse the landing gear collapse, and blow out the tires. Is a normal situation happen about the overweight landing. What safety rules should be observed during passengers boarding? During passengers boarding, safe rules include proper use of seat belts, using the mask, and correct stowage baggage, keep the eyelets clear, and eyelets clear, and that's it. What safety rules should be observed during the passengers boarding? During the passengers boarding, the ground staff team help the pilots to walk in to the correct way toward the airport. Inside the airplane, the flight attendants instruct the passengers follow the procedures, safety procedures, and about the emergency situation, use the mask, the exit emergency doors, and use the life vest. That's it. And the use escape slides too. What are the first action when arrived at the airport? My first action to check the pre-flight inspection. My first action are to check the pre-flight inspection, fuel planning, weather conditions, the flight plan, OTANs, airport briefing. After that, share this information with my colleagues and conduct a good briefing. What are the first actions when you arrive at the airport? My first actions are to check the pre-flight briefing, pre-flight inspection, flight planning, weather, flight planning, fuel planning, weather conditions, and OTAN's airport briefing. After that, I review all the information, all the subjects, and share this information with my colleague. What action should a pilot take when there is a fire on board? First of all, the pilot should immediately memory items and follow the fire on board checklist or memory items. And after that, inform the ATC and declare an emergency, and request a fire rescue upon landing. What action should the pilot take when there is a fire on board? First of all, the pilot should perform the memory items, and after that, follow the checklist procedures, fire on board. Try to contact with the ATC, explain the situation, and request the ATC firefighter teams to prepare upon landing. What are the consequences of radar contact lost in the terminal? The consequence may be reduced. The consequence may be reduced situation awareness for ATC, increase aircraft separation, and the pilots needs to report the position frequently to the controller, maintain the safety separation. What are the consequences of radar contact loss in the terminal? The consequence may be reduce the distance between the aircraft one and each other. The controller requests the distance, altitude, radio, and heading all the time. and the pilot needs to follow the instructions, pass the instructions to the controller, and try to land using the conventional aids to land by myself. How prepared do you consider yourself to deal with a critical emergency? In a critical emergency situation, it should remain calm, apply CRM all the times, and communicate clearly with everybody, and try to manage the situation calmly and use the good communication, the feedback. How prepared do you consider yourself to deal with a critical situation? In a critical emergency situation, I remain calm. I keep calmly. I will apply the CRM, principal CRM tools, communicate clearly with my colleague, and maintain the teamwork to solve the problem safely. Do you think the all ATC communication in Brazil should be conducted in English? I believe the ATC communication in Brazil should be conducted in English in controller airspace class B, A, and C, because the English how can I say, English promotes standardized communication and enhances safety for international flight. Do you think all the ATC communication in Brazil should be conducted in English? I believe the ATC communication in Brazil should be conducted in English in the future, especially class A, B, and C, because the mother language is English, and English promotes standardized communication and enhances safety, especially when flying internationally. Are you currently working as a pilot? Yes, of course. I'm currently working as a pilot, and my main base in Rio de Janeiro at the Jacarepaguá Airport. At the Jacarepaguá Airport, I operate as a corporate pilot on a medium-sized Cessna Citation, medium-sized aircraft, Cessna Citation in Super King Air turboprop. Are you currently working as a pilot? Yes, of course. I'm currently working as a pilot. My main base in Rio de Janeiro at the Jacarepaguá Airport. I operate medium-sized aircraft from the Cessna manufacturer, Cessna Citation 680, and the Super King Air turboprop. Why is it important do you succeed in this test? This test is important to me. It allows me to fly internationally. This test is important because it allows me to fly internationally and maintain my language proficiency update, and also develops my resume and support my long-term career in aviation. What is important do you to succeed in this test, James? And this test is important because it gives me opportunity to fly internationally and use the correct way my English, especially in the international air traffic control. And so I keep more confident to speak English with everybody around the world confidently and don't make mistakes. What do you consider the worst part of being a pilot? The worst part of being a pilot is spending a long period away from the family. Spend a long way the family, and the pilot has a high responsibility, the crew members and the passengers, and That's it. Every year needs to go to the simulator test and make some tests in the simulator. Do you consider the worst part of what do you consider the worst part of the pilot? The worst part of the pilot is spend a long period away from the family, and the pilot has a high responsibility inside the aircraft and the passengers and the crew members. And so once a year the pilot needs to check the license to keep the update. What do you consider a dream aircraft to fly? My dream aircraft to fly is a Gulfstream 650, and an ultra long range business jet and a high performance technology. It carries around 50 passengers. It carries 50 passengers. So, and ultra long, as I told you, it use two turbofan engines and operate worldwide. What do you consider a dream aircraft to fly? My dream aircraft to fly is a Gulfstream 650. It's an ultra long aircraft, modern and high, and has a high performance technology. It carries around 15 passengers. It uses two powerful turbofan engines. It operates in all the airports around the world, operates worldwide. What are the challenges of flying internationally? The challenges of flying internationally include complying different regulations. Yes, study different regulations, plan the correct fuel and the routes. I check the meteorological condition and special procedures and specific procedures in the country and the airport. What are the challenges of flying internationally? The challenges of flying internationally includes complying with different regulations, knows about the different regulations, planning the fuel and the route, correct route, check the meteorological conditions, and different from here in Brazil, and check the special procedures at the airport and the country. How should a pilot deal with the stressful situation? In a stressful situation, a pilot should remain calm, apply the CRM, communicate clearly with the crew members, maintain a good management about the problems during the flight, and try to solve the problem safely. How should a pilot deal with a stressful situation? In a stressful situation, pilot should remain calm, apply the CRM, try to communicate with everybody inside the airplane calmly, and try to solve the problem, use the effective communication, and maintain power distance. How do you get ready to fly early in the morning? I get ready to fly an early morning flight. I'm sure at least 8 hours. I'm sure at least at 8 hours good sleep at last night, and eat light meals the night before. And in the morning, I stay calm and I take a good breakfast. I have a good breakfast and prepare my mentally to fly safely. How do you get ready to fly early in the morning? I get ready to fly early in the morning if I had good sleep last night, maybe 8 hours. It's necessary to sleep and eat the meals, the light meals, the night before. And in the morning, I stay calm, I keep calm, I take a good shower and prepare my mentally and physically, mental and physical fit to fly safely. How should a pilot handle pressure from the employer? A pilot should handle pressure from an employer. An employer prioritizes safety. Safety comes first. Prioritizes safety. Safety comes first. And follow the ANAC policies and the manufacturer policies. The safety comes first, and employee pressure, no. How should a pilot handle the pressure from the employer? A pilot should handle pressure from the employer. An employer prioritizing safety comes first. Safety comes first, and follow the ANAC policy. Follow the ANAC policy, and as the manufacturer said, manufacturer policy, and that's it. Safety comes first, and regardless employer pressure. What is your opinion about runway pavement at Brazil airports? Runway pavement conditions across Brazil airport is poor. Some regional airports have problems such as surface damage, debris, and poor markings in the short taxiway decision may affect operational safety. What is your opinion about runway pavement in Brazil airport? Runway pavement conditions across the Brazilian airport is poor, obviously. Especially the regional airports have problems such as surface damage, debris, poor marking, short taxiway dimensions, and may affect operational safety. What can airport authorities do to improve runway safety? Airport authorities improve regular runway inspection and maintenance. The action is removing debris, of course, repair surface in the hole in the road, and that's it. What can the airport authorities do to improve runway safety? Airport authorities improve regular runway inspection 3 times a day. The action is removing debris and repair the surface, repair the hole in the surface and the road. How did you feel after your first solo flight? I felt. How did you feel after your first solo flight? I felt very happy after my first solo flight. I was very special. It was a very special moment with my family, and that experience motivated me to start my career in aviation. How did you feel after your first solo flight? I felt very happy about my first solo flight. It was a very special moment with my family and motivated me to start with my career path. During takeoff roll, how does a pilot know when to lift off? During takeoff roll, the pilot lifts off. Lifts off using rotation speed and the pitch and decline, altimeters and decline to the positive rate and confirm the takeoff attitude. During takeoff roll, how does the pilot know when to lift the off? During takeoff roll, the pilot lifts off using a rotation speed and the pitch, and the positive climb and altimeters to help them. How can mid-air collision risk be reduced? Mid-air collision risk may be reduced by strictly following ATC instructions or following the ATC instructions and a good situation awareness, use TCAS systems, and fly during takeoff and approach, looking for outside. How can mid-air collision risk be reduced? Mid-air collision may be reduced follow the instructions from the ATC, communication effective, good situation awareness, use the TCAS system, and during takeoff and approach, one pilot looking for outside. What does it mean to be under radar vectors? Being under radar vectors means following headings, altitudes, and instructions provided by ATC for navigation and traffic separation. The pilot complies ATC guidance all the times. What does it mean to be under radar vectors? Being under radar vectors means following heading, altitude, and instructions provided ATC. And the navigation, the traffic separation. The pilot complies ATC guidance at all times. What can a pilot do in dual engine failure? Dual engine failure, a pilot should maintain aircraft control, execute memory items immediately, and declare Mayday. The pilot must inform the controller and activate the oxygen system to the crew members and the passengers in the set of the low altitude to restart the engine and restart the engine accordance with the QRH. What can a pilot do in dual engine failure? Dual engine failure, the pilot should maintain aircraft control, execute the memory items, and declare Mayday. The pilot must inform the ATC, use oxygen masks if necessary, and descend to the low altitude and try to restart engine accordance with the QRH. How would you react to total FMS failure? FMS failure, I would fly the aircraft using standby instrument or raw data. I would inform the ATC, request vectors if necessary, and conduct conventional procedures or visual approach procedures. How would you react to a total FMS failure? FMS failures I would fly the aircraft using standby instruments and raw data. I would inform the ATC, request vectors if necessary, and conduct a conventional or visual approach. What should a pilot do after bird ingestion and climb? After a bird ingestion during climb, the pilot should follow the engine failure and abnormal procedures, execute the appropriate checklist. the pilot must inform the ATC and plan safety return, preparing for a single-engine landing procedures. What should the pilots do after the bird injection on the climb? After bird injection during the climb, the pilot should follow the engine failure abnormal procedures, and then the pilot must inform the ATC about the procedures to return and prepare to approach without one engine. How does training prepare a pilot in capacitation? Training prepares pilots to handle pilot capacitation by practicing standard procedures in the simulator. It ensures the remaining pilot can be followed the manufacturer and the company policies to conduct the safety procedures, the safety landing. How does training prepare a pilot in capacitation? Training prepare pilots to handle the pilot capacitation in the simulator and practicing standard procedures. It ensures the remaining pilot can follow manufacturer and the company policies. When do the pilots need longer runway? Pilots need a long runway. Pilots need a longer runway when the weight is higher and the temperatures are elevated. Airport elevation is higher because degraded the system and the performance and the landing distance due to in this condition. When do the pilots need longer runways? Pilots need a long runway when the aircraft is high, heavy, and temperatures are elevated. Airport elevation is high, and degraded aircraft system cause landing distance requirements. When do the pilots need longer runway? Pilots need a long runway. Pilots need a longer runway when the weight is higher and the temperatures are elevated. Airport elevation is higher because degraded the system and the performance and the landing distance due to in this condition. When do the pilots need longer runways? Pilots need a long runway when the aircraft is high, heavy, and temperatures are elevated. Airport elevation is high, and degraded aircraft system cause landing distance requirements. What systems are affected by electrical failure? An electrical failure affects systems such as flying instruments, light and navigation communication equipment. However, most aircraft equipped with standby emergency system to continue the flight safely. What systems are affected by electrical failure? An electrical failure affects systems such as instruments, lights, navigation, communication. However, most aircraft are equipped with the standby in emergency systems during the flight to fly safely. For what reasons may airports close? Airports may close due to a severe weather condition, thunderstorm, a strong wind shear, aircraft break on the runway, runway issues, and maintenance. For what reasons may airports close? Airports may close due to severe weather conditions, accidents, runway contamination, security threats, and maintenance activities. What action should a pilot take with fire on board? Fire on board, the pilot should immediately execute memory items and follow the manufacturer checklist. The pilot must clear an emergency and land as soon as possible, and of course request the firefighter team to help them upon landing. What action should a pilot take with the fire on board? Fire on board, the pilot should immediately execute the memory items and follow the checklist as the manufacturer said. The pilot declare the emergency situation and land as soon as possible and request the firefighter teams upon landing. What action should a pilot take with fire on board? Fire on board, the pilot should immediately execute memory items and follow the manufacturer checklist. The pilot must clear an emergency and land as soon as possible, and of course request the firefighter team to help them upon landing. What action should a pilot take with the fire on board? Fire on board, the pilot should immediately execute the memory items and follow the checklist as the manufacturer said. The pilot declare the emergency situation and land as soon as possible and request the firefighter teams upon landing. When can ATC instructions be disregarded? ATC instructions may be disregarded in a specific situation to maintain flight safety, such as avoid terrain, traffic collision, severe weather, wind shear, and thunderstorms. So, in this case, the pilot needs prioritize safety and inform the ATC as soon as possible. When the ATC instructions be disregarded, ATC instructions may be disregarded when the pilot faces some situations such as traffic collision and avoid terrain, severe weather, wind shear, and CB or thunderstorm. In this case, the pilot needs prioritize the safety procedures and the safety flight and contact the ATC as soon as possible. When can ATC instructions be disregarded? ATC instructions may be disregarded in a specific situation to maintain flight safety, such as avoid terrain, traffic collision, severe weather, wind shear, and thunderstorms. So, in this case, the pilot needs prioritize safety and inform the ATC as soon as possible. When the ATC instructions be disregarded, ATC instructions may be disregarded when the pilot faces some situations such as traffic collision and avoid terrain, severe weather, wind shear, and CB or thunderstorm. In this case, the pilot needs prioritize the safety procedures and the safety flight, and contact the ATC as soon as possible. How important is flight attendant training? Flight attendant training is essential for emergency response and the passenger safety. It ensures proper monitoring of the cabin and clear the correct procedures and behavior during the all phase of flight. How important is a flight attendant training? Flight attendant training is essential in emergency situations and explain all the procedures to the passengers, follow the safety card in two languages, native and English, and explain everything to help the pilots in the emergency situation. Why does a pilot need to descend in the sudden decompression? In a sudden decompression, a pilot must descend rapidly to a safe altitude and follow the memory items. This action prevents hypoxia and ensure adequate oxygen to the crew members and the passenger. Why does a pilot need to descend in a sudden decompression? In a sudden decompression, pilot must descend rapidly and follow the memory items. And this action prevents hypoxia and ensure adequate oxygen to the passengers and crew members. While a pilot sometimes needs to jettison fuel, pilots may jettison fuel to reduce the overweight landing. It is essential to avoid the overweight landing, and because overweight landing can cause structural damage, excessive brake stress, and the risk of the tire blowout. Why do pilots sometimes need to jettison fuel? Pilots may jettison fuel to reduce the weight before landing and follow the limitation as the manufacturer said. Overweight landing can cause a landing gear collapse, overstress in the brakes, overheating in the brakes, the tire burst in this case, and can cause a structural damage. What can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through a good situation awareness, accurate ATC communication, correct readback of the clearance, and follow the standard taxi special procedures. How can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through good situation awareness by the pilot, accurate ATC communication, and corrected readback to the clearance to the ATC, and special procedures. What can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through a good situation awareness, accurate ATC communication, correct readback of the clearance, and follow the standard taxi special procedures. How can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through good situation awareness by the pilot, accurate ATC communication, and corrected readback to the clearance to the ATC, and special procedures. What can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through a good situation awareness, accurate ATC communication, correct readback of the clearance, and follow the standard taxi special procedures. How can runway incursion be avoided? Runway incursions may be avoided through good situation awareness by the pilot, accurate ATC communication, and corrected readback to the clearance to the ATC, and special procedures. In what circumstance would you reject takeoff? Reject takeoff may be performed this way, or abort takeoff in this way, for engine failure, engine fire, warning alerts, unsafe to fly, below 80 knots. After 80 knots, below V1, just engine failure, engine fire, wind shear, and unsafe to flight. This action normally taken below V1 according to the SOP. What is the circumstance? Would you abort takeoff or reject takeoff? I performed the abort takeoff this way. Engine failure, engine fire, warning alerts, unsafe to fly, below 80 knots. Between 80 knots V1, I just abort takeoff due to engine failure, engine fire, unsafe to fly, wind shear. And that's it, according to the SOP. What is steer the cockpit and why important? A steer the cockpit restricts non-essential communication during the critical phase below 10,000 feet. It is important because they reduce distractions inside the cockpit and helps the pilot focus on the procedures. What is steer the cockpit and why is important? The steer cockpit restricts and non-essential communication below 10,000 feet in the critical phase. So it's important because reduce the distractions inside the cockpit and helps the pilots to focus in the procedures. What is steer the cockpit and why important? A steer the cockpit restricts non-essential communication during the critical phase below 10,000 feet. It is important because they reduce distractions inside the cockpit and helps the pilot focus on the procedures. What is steer the cockpit and why is important? The steer cockpit restricts and essential communication below 10,000 feet in the critical phase. So it's important because reduce the distractions inside the cockpit and helps the pilots to focus in the procedures. How can companies help pilots improve safety? Companies can improve safety investments in recurrent training, simulated programs, and a safety culture, encouraging open reporting and non-punitive feedback, and also helps identify and mitigate risk. How can companies help the pilots improve safety procedures? Companies can improve safety procedures, training the crew members inside the simulator, in the class, the correct the safety procedures, and follow exactly as the manufacturer said, and the airlines company said, mitigated some risk. The safety culture comes first. How can companies help pilots improve safety? Companies can improve safety investments in recurrent training, simulated programs, and a safety culture, encouraging open reporting and non-punitive feedback, and also helps identify and mitigate risk. How can companies help the pilots improve safety procedures? Companies can improve safety procedures, training the crew members inside the simulator, in the class, the correct the safety procedures, and follow exactly as the manufacturer said, and the airlines company said, mitigated some risk. The safety culture comes first. What's a CRM and why is it important? CRM, or Crew Research Management, is indeed a tool that improves communication and teamwork, and improve sharing information among the crew members, and keep the power distance away, and enhance flight safely. What's CRM and why is it important? CRM is a Crew Research Management, is a good tool that improves communication and the teamwork, amplify the synergy inside the cockpit between crew members, among crew members, and help the pilots to do the correct take the correct action and a good decision making, and enhance safety in the cockpit.